Hey guys, welcome back to Politicking Girly, where we talk all things politics, economics, and as it seems lately, a whole lot of banking. If you're new here and this sounds like your kind of content, please hit subscribe. Let's get right into it. So in my last few videos, we pulled back the curtain on a system I call the coup on our finances. We talked about how the problems tied to the IMF and the World Bank are just inevitable, that they can actually be solved, and a huge part of that solution lies with our own banks, including our Reserve Bank. We also learned that commercial banks don't just lend out existing money, they create it out of nothing. And instead of primarily fueling consumption with personal loans and excessively appreciating assets to the point that we actually cannot afford them through mortgage bonds, they could be directed to giving productive loans to businesses. Loans that can create jobs, improve service delivery, increase and improve the living standards of South Africans, and actually build real GDP growth. That's the key. Productive investment, in this case, productive loans, which are an investment into the country's economy. But this investigation led me down a rabbit hole. It forced me to ask a bigger question. If this is so obvious to me and other people that have been led to this particular rabbit hole, why don't our banks do it? Who is setting the rules that they follow? That's two questions instead of one. And that's when I found the sauce. The sauciest sauce, the Nando sauce, the puppet master behind the curtain. This isn't a conspiracy. It's a real institution with a terrifying amount of power, led by people that no one voted for. And that's why this series essentially came to be. And what this series is about, it's a pursuit to find why things are so bad when they can actually be better, and when we have the tools to be better. It's also about finding how inside and outside the institutions we can make things better. So welcome to the introduction. Who or what is the BIS, the saucy sauce, the puppet master? The BIS is the Bank for International Settlements. It's often called the central bank for central bankers. Now let that sink in for a moment. Who are they? The actual reality of that is these are public servants that are paid by our taxes who are supposed to serve us. But they and their other central banker colleagues from all over the world travel to Basel, Switzerland, every other month to meet at the BIS, where the rules are made. The banking regulations I mentioned in my previous video, the Basel Accords, Basel 1, 2, and 3, that makes it so hard for small businesses to get loans, they come from a committee within the BIS. So, ego, the globalist banking regulation. Yeah, I mean, it's there. To understand why this is so concerning, we have to look at its history. And the perfect resource is Adam Labor's book. I don't know if I pronounced Adam's last name correctly, but Adam Labor. The book is called The Tower of Basel, the shadowy history of the secret bank that runs the world. By the accounts of the book, the BIS was founded in 1930. Officially, it was to manage the German reparations after World War I. But its key architects were Montague Norman, the then governor of the Bank of England, and Hjalmar Schacht, the president of the then Central Bank of Germany, Reichsbank, which ended up bankrolling the Second World War. And Mr. Schacht, at some point, is famously recalled having said the BIS is my bank. You know, there's that. And I would very, very much like to do a short bio video on Montague Norman, Hjalmar Schacht, and I believe there's a man called Pers something who was the Swedish economist and served as an advisor for the BIS, and he was a force to be reckoned with because I believe he gave the foundation of the BIS to be what it is now. Very keen to do that. But first, actually would like us to take a little bit of a pause, a little bit of a moment to do a head scratch, because we have an institution that eventually helped bankroll the Nazi regime that is still in its apex of the global financial system today. They are affecting our lives today. That alone should tell you that there is something very, very wrong. Absolutely wrong. Something is not right. As they say, where there's a smoke, there's a fire. But it gets more alarming. The BIS enjoys a level of power and immunity that is almost unbelievable. They're based in Switzerland. It operates on a sovereign state. So this bank is like a country of its own. And to again make this even more worse, it is exempt from Swiss taxes. Its employees don't pay income tax on their very generous salaries. And most shockingly, all its officials have lifetime immunity under Swiss law for any acts carried out during their duties. They are, in every essence, above the law in the entire world. The book, in my opinion, describes the atmosphere at the BIS as kind of a cult. And you will know why I say that. Senior staff are driven by a sense of mission, a belief in a higher, even celestial purpose. They see themselves so superior that they don't need to be bothered with accountability and transparency. And among the central bankers, that would also include our governor of central bank, they see themselves as high priest of finance. Their word is their bond. There's no formal agreement that is signed at these very secretive governance meetings. It's all based on absolute trust. That's why I said it's giving cultish vibes here. But hey, and I just want to highlight here that these are people that are operating in a real world where billions are involved, and those billions impact billions of people of this world, not just them. And typically, if you are in that kind of environment, you would need to sign a contract. But no, in this case, it's kind of sounding more like a blood oath when you enter the first meeting, and it's given mafia style, blood in, blood out. That's my opinion. And of course, we have to ask, who pays for our governor to attend this meeting? We do. We, the South African public, do with our taxes. And this, of course, is the same public that is suffering under an economic system that these very meetings design. They say that they talk about like monetary issues and financial issues, but we all know that if the Reserve Bank says the repo rate goes up, that mortgage starts sounding like an unnecessary expense, But hey, this also brings me to my central point. We focus so much on political freedom, but we end up forgetting that economic freedom is just as equally important. They go hand in hand. That there's no one, it's not a half, it's one coin, just different sides. That's how I see this. And unfortunately, the real power doesn't always lie with the politicians we see on TV. And I think the last 20 years of global political issues, like if you look at the promises that politicians promise the people versus the results, it's quite clear that the politician has nothing to offer except rhetoric and promises, empty promises. We start seeing that real power lies with the economic decision makers. That would be your finance ministers, the Reserve Bank governors, the rich individuals who are ultimately in some way or form accountable to the BIS. And we start seeing that our politicians are often just cogs in a much larger machine. As other people would say, they're puppets. And if we want to understand why South Africa struggles to grow, why corruption seems so entrenched, we have to follow the money, the real money, the money that makes the world run, the entire world. And by the looks of things, a lot of that money leads back to Basel, Switzerland, the home of the BIS. It makes me look at certain South African business dynasties, like say the Ruperts, some of their companies are registered in Switzerland, in a slightly different light. I'm not saying, by the way, like the Rupert's Richmond company, it's not in Basel. So we're not saying that. It's just you start looking things from a different perspective, because now it's not giving tax efficiency, it's giving, I want to be closer to the seat of power. And this is why, especially as we head towards this upcoming election cycle, we need to be far more informed, because none of the political parties, the old and the new, are talking about this. They're not highlighting, they're not even saying, sorry, we cannot meet your promises because we don't have decision-making power. None of them are bringing this to the table. The TA, as I call them, the tyrannical alliance under Helen Zeller's autocratic grip, would most likely implement these globalist policies without question, and the ANC has already failed to protect us and has kind of shown that they're very, very happy to hand over our economic sovereignty. As you start looking from a different perspective, you start seeing that we are being distracted by political trauma, and it's like a never-ending season of keeping up with the Kardashians, while the real decisions to plunder and loot our futures are made in the boardroom in Basel. So that's a teaser of who or what is the BIS. In the next videos, we're going to dive deep into the history of the BIS and connect its policies to the realities we face here in South Africa and the global South, and ask the hard questions about accountability that no one in power seems to be willing to ask or even answer. This is about shifting our focus from trauma to the source. Someone said somewhere on the interwebs that everywhere in the world we find ourselves realizing that a surgery needs to be done. But what kind of surgery depends on what you find. So in this case, we have to understand the system in and out so that we know how to change it. In this case, so that we know what kind of surgery we have to do. Open heart surgery, open brain surgery. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.